Zhang tapped a virtual icon on his haptic glove. Simultaneously, 3,000 miles away, a Chinese fishing trawler in the South China Sea deployed a heavy-duty submersible. Its target was the SMW-5 subsea cable, the primary data artery connecting India's naval command to the global web. With the casual snip of a robotic claw, India's maritime awareness was halved. In the high Earth orbit above the Tibetan Plateau, a Chinese SHARDSat, a kinetic interceptor disguised as a weather satellite, closed the distance on an Indian communications array. It didn't explode. That would be too loud. It simply nudged the satellite, sending it tumbling into a lower orbit where it would burn up in the atmosphere. "The giant is being blinded," Zhang said softly. "Now we begin the harvest." The murmuration of death. Back on the Depsang plains, the silence of the night was broken not by a shout but by a high-pitched mechanical whine. The sound of 10,000 hornets. From hidden silos carved into the reverse slopes of the mountains, the swarm was launched. These were loitering munitions, suicide drones, designed to move in a murmuration. They didn't fly in a formation. They moved like a flock of starlings, shifting and pulsing in a way that rendered traditional anti-aircraft logic useless. If you shot down one, the other 99 adjusted their trajectory instantly. "Major, the drones!" a sentry screamed from the trench line outside. Vikram lunged for the heavy steel door of the post, throwing it open to the freezing night. The sky was no longer black. It was lit by the blue-green glow of electronic jamming flares. High above, he could see the swarm, a shifting, dark cloud that blotted out the stars. "Man the ZU-23s! Use the manual sights!" Vikram roared. He knew the automated systems would be useless. The PLA's EW, electronic warfare units, had already poisoned the radar returns, creating thousands of false targets. This was the irony of 2027. The more advanced your technology, the more vulnerable you were to the subversion of that technology. A sergeant managed to get a heavy machine gun spiraling into the sky. Red tracer rounds sliced through the darkness, tearing into the drone cloud. A few drones exploded in small orange bursts of flame, but the cloud simply absorbed the loss and kept coming. Then came the Iron Soldiers. The robotic quadrupeds crested the ridge, their red optical sensors glowing like the eyes of demons. They moved with a predatory grace, leaping over the boulders that would have tripped a human soldier. One UGV paused, its turret swiveling with robotic coldness, and unleashed a burst of fire that suppressed the Indian trench in seconds. The shattered piece Vikram grabbed his rifle, but the digital optic was a dead, black eye, fried by the localized EMP. He flipped up the iron sights, the same design used by his grandfather in 1962. There was a grim comfort in the weight of the cold steel. "They think they've won because they've killed the sensors," Vikram hissed to his men, who were emerging from their dugouts with the desperate look of men who knew they were already dead. But they forget that a blinded tiger still has claws. He looked up. A streak of fire crossed the sky. Not a meteor, but the falling debris of a multi-billion-dollar satellite. Below him, the plains were alive with the mechanical scream of the machines. The glass horizon had shattered, and the shards were falling everywhere. The war of 2027 had begun. It wasn't about a single valley or a single ridge. It was about which civilization could survive the total collapse of the systems it had built to sustain itself. As the first drone dived toward the roof of the observation post, Vikram Singh realized that the era of the human soldier hadn't ended. It had just become much more terrifying. In the neon-lit bunkers of the PLA and the frozen trenches of the Indian Army, the realization was the same. The silence of the Himalayas was gone forever. The world was watching, but because the cables were cut and the satellites were dark, the world saw nothing but static. The first chapter of the conflict was written in blood on the snow, but the ink was already freezing.